What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike. Today we're talking once again about the relationship between my wife and I and what it is like to sleep with and or be married to a fundamentalist Christian. Let me disclaim this video out the gate. That is a bit of a clickbait title, I guess. My wife was a fundamentalist Christian for the first 35 years of her life. She has not been a fundy Christian since we got married. I was her second husband. So if you came to this video expecting to hear all of the pros of being a fundy Christian, I'm sorry to tell you that this is not going to be the video for you. So one of the, I have complained at length, and I certainly don't want to make light of her struggles. Having been a fundamentalist Christian for so long, and a brand of fundamentalist Christian that eventually led to her vaginal atrophy and just lots of really horrific sexual problems in her first marriage that ended up destroying their marriage in large part. She's certainly been through it in life, and so I don't want to make light of that in any way. It's very serious. I've talked to lots of women or friends of women who were raised similarly and had similar experiences, which of course helps to kind of take some of the sting out of the situation, knowing that you're not alone. But it is very serious. It can be very serious for a lot of women. And so today, though, we're going to try to look on the bright side and talk about some of the very unique side effects of a guy like me, who is effectively a sex addict and a porn addict, getting into a relationship with someone who has had very little experience with either. So she did have a limited amount of sex in her first marriage. It was just always so horribly dysfunctional and unenjoyable. So, I mean, she certainly wasn't a virgin when I met her, but it was kind of like the second best thing to it. Like she was, in her early 30s and had been with one guy for basically she'd only been with one guy in life, and they had totally dysfunctional sex. So while she's not technically a virgin, all of the good sex, effectively, the functional sex that she's ever had in life, she's had with me. And so, without sounding negative, I've effectively been able to mold this woman to some degree into something that fits very well with my personality type. Also, you have to understand that for her, having a sexual awakening when she was 35 and coming to grips with just how much of a negative impact her belief system had on her body's ability to function normally, it certainly created a lot of anger. And so she carries a lot of, I don't know if to say that she carries is fair anymore. I don't want to put words into her mouth, but she had a good deal of anger sort of directed at maybe not necessarily her parents or her upbringing, but just sort of what she missed out on in life. And so there's a lot of things that I'm going to talk about today that exist in our marriage that I think are atypical. And that's the second point of making this video, is I'm kind of curious. Is my wife this way because of the fact that she grew up in such a strict upbringing and is now sort of letting loose? Or is this just much more common behavior amongst women than you're likely to hear about, than people are likely to admit? So, for example, there's certain language that we use in our house that I think is very atypical of normal relationships, right? So like in my previous marriage and all of the relationships that I had prior to that, we had different words for sex, but they were always sort of, one girl that I lived with, we called it humping. And that happened just because she misheard me say something. She thought I said one thing and she thought I said humping, and then it just kind of became a thing. And so we always referred to sex as humping. There was usually some kind of pet name for the act, or we would say have sex or make love. But generally speaking, in the confines of intimate, committed relationships, fucking is not the word that is generally, I think, used to describe a loving sex act. And in my relationship, that is exactly the word we use. My wife gets so turned on by me talking dirty to her, it's almost become a love language. Because she didn't get to have that part of life. She didn't get to have that delineation between, fucking, like going out on the weekend maybe and going bar hopping and, and hooking up and fucking or sport fucking for the sake of sex versus committed, intimate love making. She missed that whole boat. And so there's certain language that would typically be considered very derogatory or negative language to use toward your wife or in the confines of your marriage that we use and we have turned into our own love language. So we almost exclusively call sex fucking. And she will tell me things like, "You fuck my pussy so good. I love when you fuck me. Please fuck me." Like it's dirty. But for me, it's super arousing, and it's a hell of a lot of fun to be with a girl where you can talk in this, technically dirty way and have it be the utmost, expression of love. It's so much so the case in our relationship that to say, like, if I was to say make love to you, it's not like I can't say it. But I think it comes out weird because we usually talk dirtier. We have pet names for each other that I can't even use on this fucking camera. They're derogatory, sometimes racially inspired names that we have just taken all of the negatives of life and all of the things you're not supposed to do and you're not supposed to say and basically turned them into positives. And that's become, we're like little demons, really. She fell from grace in a major way, and everything that the church could imagine would happen to you if you turn away from Christ has literally happened. So she went from being a 27-year-old virgin who dressed, who made no effort at being sexy because she was taught by her family and her church that if her dress or her behavior, if she behaved in such a way like sexy, if she acted sexy and that turned on another man, that she was guilty of sinning, that she was responsible for the sinful thoughts of men. So she was never to behave in any kind of way that could possibly be arousing to a boy. And so because she didn't get any of that, she loves, inside the confines of our marriage, acting and dressing and being very sexy and flirtatious and dirty because she never got the opportunity to do that. That's probably the biggest reason, honestly, that she ever even agreed to OnlyFans, because nothing could possibly be further from her nature. But that's what's happened. That is what we know happens when you try to stifle the human animal, when you try to put something in a cage and limit its mobility, and when you try to hobble its mind and control what it can have access to, and then suddenly one day it gets free, it kind of goes crazy. And that was one of the things that was deeply concerning to me in the very beginning of our marriage. Was I watched her have her sexual awakening, and I was very concerned that I might accidentally turn her into a whore, like a legitimate whore, like that she might go, "Oh my God, now that I've been awakened, I want to go, test the waters and try different things." And luckily, she doesn't seem to have any amount of that in her, and she's very, very dedicated to me. And all of the sex that she's had, all of the enjoyable sex she's had in life has come in my arms, and so she's very, very deeply dedicated to me. And so that has not been the case. I have not seen any signs or symptoms or evidence of that behavior in her at all. And so, I've talked on this channel before. I have to paraphrase. She often will refer to a sex act between us where she is not really into it. Like, she doesn't have any real physical needs of her own, but she still wants the closeness. She still wants me to make love to her, but she's not trying to get off, basically. So we don't go through the typical behaviors, the foreplays and the whole lead up and everything that would lead to her having a high degree of likelihood of orgasming. The term that she uses to refer to that act rhymes with the word grape. She will say, "I want you to grape me," which is obviously antithetical to what most women, like. I don't think there's a lot of women in the world. I don't think, and that's why I'm making this video, to find out. I don't think that in the confines of a normal, committed, 9-year marriage, that a woman talks to a man like that, or a man talks to a woman like that, and that term is used to convey this very sweet, gentle, very compassionate, loving act. Obviously the definition of the word is anything but. And our lives have really become that. We are just the polar opposite of everything that you are supposed to do, quasi supposed to do in life. We do everything differently. We do everything backwards. It's like perpetual backwards day. Kids used to do that in school, have backwards day. And so the terminology that we use in this house, like, to a third party bystander, they like, if a person didn't know us and they read our text messages, for example, or they overheard, like, if you could if there was a fly in the room in our bedroom, you would probably be like, "Oh my God, these people are horrific with the way they talk to each other." And yet to us, it's like the utmost expressions of love and affection and adoration and appreciation and respect. We just use all the wrong terminology. And so, let me get my drink real quick. And so the other thing that has become a side effect to the language that we use is that because she did not have numerous sexual partners in life, she doesn't really know what normal is, right? So and to some degree, there are no normals, right? Like, everybody's different. But there's some stereotypical behaviors that are relatively normal, I would say, in most relationships. And maybe I'm a fool for even trying to characterize it like this. But the example that I'm getting at is because she did not have a myriad of her own personal experiences, most of her education, if you could call it that, education, about how to behave during a sex act has come from watching pornography. She didn't get to go through the normal growing up phase where, young girls and young guys interact with one another. They learn how to talk to each other. They learn how to communicate their wants and needs. They go through various positions. Their sexual game, their sexual repertoire grows in this sort of organic way. Like, most people go from first base to second base to third base, and then when you start having sex, there's a growing up period in your sex life, and you mature and you learn, the do's and don'ts of things as you grow up and as you get older and as you have more experienced partners and more diverse partners. And so her sex life has been 2 men and effectively only one. Again, she technically had sex with another man, but it was very sparing and not functional. And so we watch a tremendous amount of porn together. And so my wife will emulate things you see in porn. She will emulate the way they talk, the way they act, the positions they get into, various different things that like most women, I think, can delineate. They can separate, like, okay, this is sort of normal talk and normal behavior, and this is pornography. This is what you might see at a strip club, or a girl who's intentionally being salacious and overly sexual and playing a character maybe. And so, but my wife doesn't have that reference at all. She has nothing to compare to. So she has our sex life and then what she sees on camera. And that's the only experience. So as far as she's concerned, it's constantly a determining factor of which one is normal, you know? So I'm a very well-endowed man. In every relationship I've ever been in, the one, you know, if there was one thing I could have confidence in, it was that I probably had I was definitely in the top percentage of penis sizes that this girl had ever been with in life. Now, I'm not 9 inches long, but I'm close, you know, I'm gaining on 8, okay? And relatively big around, 5.5 inches around. You can see it on my OnlyFans page. In the porno world, I'm not a big man at all. I mean, like, if you watch human porn, I say human to delineate from, like, animated, not the other. Porn stars are these days are very large, and they will give me, a guy who's well above average, a fucking crisis, you know, of insecurity, because it's just 10s, 11s, and 12. I mean, the things you see in pornography are outrageous. And she and I have had conversations about that, where I've told her, like, I started getting insecure at one point, and I'm like, you know, these dicks are not normal, right? And she's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, like, the average penis size is actually really small. And she's like, what do you mean, you know? And I was like, well, the average penis size is like 4.5 inches, 5.5 inches tops. And so she didn't believe me. So the number of times we've looked up, you know, various different things, that she's done research so that she can separate pornography from real life. Because if all you've ever watched is porn, and I'm over here packing 7 3/4 inches, and she's looking at me like, man, my guy's little compared to everything that she sees on a regular basis. I'm not very big. And so she was shocked when she looked up the data, the actual statistics on average male length and girth, and it's substantially, I'm well above average in every one of those measurements. But it's almost like all for naught. Because again, her experience is that visually to her, now we'll get into that later, but you know, her experience is that I'm on the small end of the fucking range. And so that's one of the things that can be negative about being with a girl who's had very few sexual partners, is that to some degree she can't even appreciate what she has. You know, she's had the sex that she had with her ex-husband, so she knows what bad sex can be. But this guy at least was like making an effort. You know, like, he was trying to fix his marriage. He just didn't know how. And so she's never had like this stereotypical bad sex where a guy is just totally 100% focused on himself. He's in and out in 3.5 minutes. No foreplay, no attempt at pleasing the woman. She's never seen the range of smaller penises. She's never had experiences with selfish lovers, or all the variety that you can find in the world. You know, drunken hookups, you know, coked up hookups, like all of the myriad variety of sexual experiences that you can have in life. She doesn't have any of that. She's just got me. And so sometimes she's left in this situation. She's even said, it's like, there's no way for me to even know what I have, you know, or how good what I have is, because I don't have anything to compare it to. And so that can be, unfortunately, a negative. The positive is that because all she watches is porn, or because that makes up the vast majority of her sexual education, you know, certain behaviors that you see in porn, certain things, the way that girls talk, the dirty talk, all of that is just second nature to her. So we talk to each other We talk very dirty. We watch very taboo types of pornography. We watch very extreme kinds of pornography. We're not into the basic kind of stuff because admittedly we've been desensitized. She's like getting this wealth of experience encapsulated in this one little moment, and I have really tried to show her as much of the world as I can, without risking damaging my relationship, my marriage. And so one of the things that I did, we did an experiment one time where, because she didn't have any experience with varying size, I, on a trend blast, when I was like super raging horny, I bought her like 15 dildos, ranging in size from very small to like the biggest one was like 9.5 inches long, 6 inches around. There was one that was slightly smaller but even bigger around. It was gigantic. I have a picture of all of these dildos that I purchased for her, so I might post it to our Discord channel. Somewhere in the Discord channel I might post it. So if you're not already on Discord, the link is in the channel page. Lots of things that are like secondary to these videos that I've been making recently will go on to Discord, and there's usually always, like right now there's 7 people online. There's always somebody in there talking, so definitely check out the Discord channel. I might post a picture of all of these dildos. So to try to give my wife experiences, I wanted her to have experiences, but I'm absolutely not about sharing her. What I did is I bought her a variety of dildos in varying sizes. So like, I don't remember what the smallest one was. It was probably like 3.5 inches and not very big around. And then they would graduate from there. Like I said, the overall biggest one was like 9.5 inches long, I think 6 inches around. We named all of them. So we gave all of them Norse god names. So like the big 9.5, 6-incher, we named Thor. And then she had one that was more like almost triangular shaped because it was so enormous at the base. It was like 7.5 inches or 7 inches. It was absurd. Like you'll see it in this picture. It's a massive thing. And I think we named that one Vidar. And then we had Odin. We had all these different ones. And so we had vibrators that were from very small all the way up to slightly smaller than me, my size, slightly bigger, and then bigger and bigger. And so I've never talked about this. I'm about to confess something that is slightly embarrassing, but it's something that I did because I thought it was the best way to try to give my wife some experiences without involving other people. So we bought all these dildos, and obviously, so she's playing with them. She's trying to get a feel for these different things. But that's not quite really a one-to-one comparison, because she's laying on her back. She has to reach to try to use this. This is not a good replication of a sex act with a man of this size. And so one day I got the idea, so embarrassing. One day I got the idea, well, why don't I like hold it, like, cause they all have like suction bases, What if I like hold it and press it against like my pubic bone, like when I'm flaccid, and do the motion for her. Basically use the dildo on her so that she's effectively having sex with me. It's my motion. I'm controlling everything. She's looking at me. She's just feeling something of varying sizes. And she was like, okay, that sounds like interesting. And so we tried that and it worked way better. But it like wear your arm out trying to like hold this thing to yourself. So I got on Amazon and I found these underwear that are basically, it's like men's underwear. It's basically strap-on underwear is what it is. Okay, so imagine a pair of black underwear, and then right where the pubic bone region is, there is the ring, the hard ring that a strap-on clicks, kind of snaps into. So I'm wearing a pair of underwear and I can strap on effectively these dildos of varying size and then have sex with my wife with these dildos. So again, it's my motion. She's looking at me. She's feeling me touch her. But she's experiencing different sizes, lengths, girths, all of these things. And so we ran this experiment up and down the gamut of all of these toys, which let me be honest, takes a good deal of self-esteem and being very secure, you know? Like most men are terrified by the thought of their woman being with a guy who is bigger than them. So, you know, it was all fun and games with the small ones, you know? You start getting, and so then you get up and she's reacting, okay? So she's enjoying this. The small ones, not so much, but once we start getting closer to my size, I mean, she's orgasming frequently from these acts. And so the jury is in as to whether or not these feel good and can replicate sex. And we bought, you know, high dollar, I think they're called dual density. If you're a woman or if you're a guy and you attempt to replicate this experiment, definitely look up dual density dildos. Because they are much more lifelike. They're not hard. They're not so hard, and so your girl will enjoy them much more. They're much more realistic feeling. I think they even have triple density now. So most of the larger ones that we got were all these dual density dildos, and they are relatively anatomically correct. Okay, and so she was very orgasmic, actually, with the dildo that was slightly smaller than me, and then orgasmic with the one that was my size, and then she was able to achieve orgasm with every single one of them. So she has used the 9.5 by 6. She's used the like 7, like I think it's like, I don't even know. It was like, one of them is really big around. And and she was able to orgasm from all of them. And so then I used to say, okay, but which would you prefer? And she, you know, bless her heart, how can you know if she's telling the truth? She would always prefer, according to her, the one that was slightly smaller than me or my size. She said that she was perfectly able to orgasm from Thor, and we had a lot of fun with Thor. I actually ended up having a lot of fun with Thor. So the secondary side to this, what I got out of it from a male perspective, is when you're wearing just what looks like totally normal underwear, try to imagine this, and now all of a sudden, you have like this entire arsenal of penises. So like you could put on little ones, and like the first time I put on this Thor, this this massive thing, like it's almost like if you get into the right character, it becomes you. So if you've ever been a man, if you're a small guy or you're hung like me, and you've kind of always dreamed of being huge, this is a really cool experience for you too, because you get to know kind of what it would be like to be that big. So I'm looking down at this thing that's physically attached to me. I have to hold it with like 2 hands because it's huge. And so then you get to literally make love to your partner as if you are this giant guy. And you get to watch her body. Just a woman's parts are unbelievable to behold. The way, and it, you know, the bigger ones she could enjoy, but it takes a lot of doing. You know, that's the downside. That's one of the things I learned. Like, you know, I'm at that range about 7.5 inches, 5.5 inches around, where I'm big enough that if I'm aggressive enough, I can hurt her. Like I can be too much. I can go too deep, and she will squeal from it. But I'm not so big that I can't just put it right in, you know, and go as deep as I want for the overwhelming majority of the time without causing a problem. What I learned from using the much bigger toys is there's a lot of buildup. You can't, if you've got a huge dick and this girl's not used to this, you can't just roll her over and cram it into her. Like, her body has to literally expand and work to accommodate something of this size, or you could easily hurt someone. And so one of the things that I learned with this particular size of dildo is that for my wife, a man who is this size cannot fully penetrate her without causing a substantial amount of discomfort. So, like, is it possible? Yeah. Like, if you go real slow, you could get the whole thing in, but everything is real slow. It's not like you could just go crazy. It's just too much. And so she's reported numerous times, while, yeah, like, there's novelty to it. Sure, it's amazing feeling so full and having something of that size inside of you. So she kept saying, I'm so full. She had very strong orgasms from the much larger toys. But she said that while it was fun, it took a lot of, like, deep breathing and relaxing, and you got to ease into it. And so for her, assuming she's telling the truth, for her, it was just more, it was unnecessary. It wasn't like the larger dildos created substantially stronger orgasms. She was just able to orgasm with both. Both produced good orgasms that she enjoyed, but the smaller ones were capable of producing the same quality of orgasms, sometimes multiple orgasms, with a lot less work, a lot less fear, a lot less uncomfortableness afterwards. She was very concerned about getting stretched out. She didn't want to play with the large toys frequently because she didn't know, like, is this going to permanently alter my anatomy to the point where then I really won't be enough? And so the last thing, I didn't really plan on going this far into the dildo story. I've been kind of holding this one back for a while. The other thing that was exciting for me is that when you use a dildo on your wife or your girlfriend that is bigger than you, and then you attempt to have sex with her immediately after that, it takes a minute for her body, it can take a little while for her body to snap back. So what you also gain as the male in this experiment is, like, if we used Thor and then I got really turned on by using this toy on her, and then I immediately followed the toy for, like, my turn, her body felt totally different. It was almost like I was having sex with a different woman. Her vagina felt obviously looser. It had almost a different consistency to it. And it was actually very enjoyable. It was very enjoyable for me. Like, she just got to experience something that is different in size and girth and characteristics and all of this than I am. And she was able to have an enjoyable, novel experience. And then when I get inside her behind this thing, while she will admit it was hard for her to feel me, so you got to get that out of your head. You're not going to stand up. It's like I'm there, but I'm not able to create anywhere near the amount of stimulation immediately following something so large. But it was just sort of my time to have fun, because now I'm getting to feel her on me, and she feels totally different than normal. And that was able to produce some really powerful orgasms for me. Getting to experience something that's not, she's very tight. And so a girl who is very tight can make you come quickly, but often if she's very tight, your orgasm quality can be diminished. It's like too much, and so you finish very rapidly. And I found that by effectively stretching her a bit with something that was larger than me, would reduce the amount of stimulation that she applied to my genitals, and then I was able to have longer, stronger, more drawn out orgasms because she was loose enough effectively to facilitate that. So it ended up being this really fun experience, and at the end of the day, we just don't use them. She never requests them. Our sex life is perfectly healthy without them. She prefers vibrators. If she's going to incorporate a toy into the sex act, it's always a vibrator. It's not, I can't remember the last time we used them. I had some insecurity that, and I've had ill feelings both ways. Like sometimes I would kind of get excited about it and want to see, and kind of want her to be interested in trying something new and fun, and she just would be like, no, I don't really want to do that. You're all that I want. And so it'd be like, kind of like, oh, that sucks, that would have been fun. And then sometimes I would get insecure, like, what if she's like always daydreaming and like wishing she had one of the bigger toys and she just doesn't want to tell me? Your mind can run the gamut of insecurities when you bring these kinds of things into your marriage. And so please let me disclaim and warn you, if you're not very secure in your anatomy or very secure in your partner, or very secure in your marriage or your relationship, this might not be the thing that you want to do. But we had a tremendous amount of fun doing it, and so she got to basically have sex with tons of different men of varying sizes while never cheating on her partner. We never involved another partner in our relationship. I got to feel women of varying degrees of tightness without ever going outside the confines of my marriage. And so we got to have a lot of really interesting sexual experiences that were still just ours and didn't involve anyone else. And because of the way that these things connect to the male body, I don't think she would say that it perfectly emulates real sex. Obviously, there's no blood flow. It's not warm. Of course, we would put them in hot water to heat them up. So there's a variety of things that you can do. We've played with glass. We've played with lots of different things to try. I have gone out of my way to try to give her the maximum number of experiences that she could have had in life without having to have all of the negativity that comes with the psychological impact of having shared yourself with multiple physical partners without having to worry about disease or emotions or whatever. At the end of the day, it's always just me. And so while, that hopefully I will be the only partner she ever has for the rest of her life, and my style, for lack of a better term, will be all that she knows. But as far as the physical dimensions and what can be accomplished, she's had probably more variety than most women in that regard. And it's free at any time. Anytime she wants to say, hey, like, I'd like to get the big boy out tonight and have that novel experience. It's like, okay, cool. I don't get insecure about it because I know that if she chooses it, it's very rare that she does. And then, like I said, on the backside, I'm going to be getting to have a novel experience too and feeling something that is very atypical for me. So it's really a win-win for both people and has been a very, very exciting part of our sex life. And again, I think this is something that, maybe not be the norm in a lot of relationships. I don't think I'm going to see in the comment section a whole lot of people having had done this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is very common. If you have never tried it and you are secure, definitely worth looking into. It's a hell of a lot of fun. So these are just some of the things that have been side effects of the fact that my wife was brought up in this incredibly strict home and didn't have the full gamut of life experiences that I think most of us have in our developmental years. And now she's coming out of her shell in this relationship where sometimes she's on anabolics, which make her unnaturally horny. She's out of her mind horny right now. And we've bought some new toys recently to play with, and we're experimenting with some different kinds of pornography. And so we're always stretching a limit, literally sometimes, and we're always trying to find new ways to keep things exciting. And because of the fact that she doesn't know what normal is, it's a lot easier for me to sell her on the idea of trying something that might be on the very extreme end of the range, that your typical girl could be very very put off by. I think that if you tried to use some of the language that we use in our house with the typical woman, she could be very put off by it. Oh my God, my wife just notified me that I have a meeting in 45 minutes that's like 20 minutes away. So I better cut this video short. There you have it. I've spent a good deal of time complaining about all the negative impacts that my wife's fundamentalist Christian upbringing has had on our marriage. And so I wanted to kind of right the ship a little bit and tell you that it is definitely not all doom and gloom. We've had some very, very fun and exciting and crazy experiences, and most of them I could not recommend enough. They're a lot of fun. They can definitely take your relationship to the next level. And so there you have it. Hopefully this has been entertaining and informative. Hopefully I don't catch too much grief for my strap-on techniques in the comment section. Keep in mind that was voluntary. You know, like a lot of times guys get beat up for this, and it's because they're getting cucked out, or they're inadequate or whatever. And my situation was the polar opposite, so it's why I was able to have so much fun with it and can talk candidly about it, because I just don't think there's any negativity to it. So I'm definitely gonna be interested, as will she, I think, to see all of your comments and reactions on this video. As always, feel free to follow us on all of the sites that are connected on my channel page. We have FreeOF, PaidOF, Discord, Instagram. Anything that you can do to help and support the channel is always appreciated. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.